Here's a WCW Blunder for you. Glacier, a frosty fan favourite over on the Reliving the War series. Ray Lloyd got dealt a rough hand in terms of his WCW debut. Those who watched my channel and those who watched Nitro back in 1996 would remember the constant blood runs cold vignettes and how Glacier's arrival in WCW was delayed over and over again. When Glacier was finally revealed through yet more vignettes, the character was met with indifference. The Mortal Kombat inspiration was painfully obvious, we don't need to get into all that, but the whole Glacier reveal also, in a way, represented a slight identity crisis for World Championship Wrestling. The NWO's arrival felt cutting edge. The lengths WCW went through to make the New World Order feel real was something that made fans pay close attention to Monday Nitro, and when you compare the unpredictability of this outlaw faction trying to take over a company to a Sub-Zero ripoff giving us martial arts demonstrations on top of his ice palace, then Glacier ends up looking passé before he even has a debut match. Glacier may have been a new wrestler, but it felt like he wouldn't have been out of place in WCW a few years prior. Still, the one thing that Ray Lloyd had going for him was the fact that he wasn't bad at all in the ring. He brought something new to the table in terms of his moveset, and while it's very easy for us to look back and laugh at the blatant Mortal Kombat ripoff, God knows I do it enough, but Glacier was spared becoming total meme material thanks to how well he performed in the ring. Also, those who have met Ray and spoke with Ray say that he's an awesome guy too, so this would lead you to think that all Ray had to do was ditch the Glacier gimmick and try something else, right? Surely it was just the Glacier gimmick that was holding him back, and a change of character would work wonders for this guy. Well, yeah, Glacier was gone by August of 1999, and Ray Lloyd sure did get himself a new gimmick, and somehow, I don't know how they did it, but somehow, WCW managed to give Ray something even worse than the Glacier character. This is just one of the downfalls that we're going to look at today. Here is the multiple downfalls of Glacier. This should be fun. Eric Bischoff said that Glacier was created as a WCW marketing project, and if that's the case, WCW seriously failed. Bischoff said the driving force behind the Glacier character was merchandising, things like action figures and video games. And I say WCW failed in that department because they didn't even bother bringing out an official Glacier action figure, and there was no Blood Runs Cold video game either. Yes, you may say Glacier was featured in WCW Revenge, but so was Jim Neidhart, and the Anvil didn't have to dress up like Sub-Zero to get a spot either. With that in mind, Glacier certainly wasn't the first gimmick created with the sole intention of selling merchandise, and Eric Bischoff did hold a lot of experience in sales and marketing. The intentions aren't the problem here, but the fact that Glacier only got this race car toy and not a fully fledged action figure kinda shows us that WCW shit the bed with its initial idea. You've got Wrath and Mortis too, again two good wrestlers, portraying Glacier's biggest enemies, and they too wouldn't have looked out of place in a Mortal Kombat game or a Saturday morning cartoon. But as time went on, you could tell that nobody, not a single soul, knew what to do with the Glacier story arc. It was the NWO bringing in the merchandise money, not the Sub-Zero knockoff. So in terms of generating revenue, it made sense for the marketing department to put all their focus onto the NWO, and boy did they ever go overboard. NWO posters, NWO pins, multiple variations of the NWO shirt. It seemed like every other week new NWO merchandise was being advertised, and you know what? It made good business sense. Fans wanted to buy this stuff. The NWO brand was probably making more money than every other superstar's merchandise put together. What fans clearly didn't want to buy was a Glacier shirt, a Glacier replica helmet, or heaven forbid, a Glacier video game. The Blood Runs Cold storyline was nowhere near as successful as Eric Bischoff had hoped, but it did provide fans with a change of pace during WCW television shows. As big as the NWO were, fans weren't going to sit through full shows dominated by the New World Order, and Bischoff's attempts at creating NWO exclusive shows proves this. As silly as it was at times, the Blood Runs Cold storyline was different from everything else on WCW television, and I thought this was fine. It remained in the mid-card, it didn't eat up too much TV time, and we got to see some good performers in the ring while all this was going down. At the beginning of 1998 though, the company decided to end the Blood Runs Cold storyline and turn Glacier heel, because why the fuck not? It's not like the story was going anywhere at this point anyway. On the January 24th, 1998 episode of Saturday Night, Glacier turned on his friend Ernest Miller and he let Mortis and Wrath score a tag team victory, which technically means Mortis and Wrath were the winners of the whole Blood Runs Cold feud. If you thought big things were on the horizon for the evil Frosty Balls, then you've got another thing coming. Glacier went on a losing streak after turning heel, made all the more noteworthy because he spent his debut year being undefeated in singles competition. It's usually at this point in a superstar's career when it all goes downhill. We have seen it countless times. An idea fails, but the guy's still on payroll, so just use him and get other people over. But WCW, to their credit, did try a few more times with Glacier. Still, those few months Glacier spent losing matches did him absolutely no favours. He was already perceived as a lower mid-card guy at this point, and losing to the likes of Steve Mongo McMichael and Prince Iaukea on Nitro didn't help matters. Another thing that didn't help too, Glacier would limit his moveset considerably when wrestling as a bad guy. The commentators even made a point of saying that Glacier was now focusing on pro wrestling and not martial arts. So one of the things that made Glacier stand out, one of the only redeemable qualities he had from a TV standpoint, was also taken away. And I get it, taking away fancy kicks and unique moves gives the crowd less opportunities to cheer, but WCW was also giving people more reason not to care about Glacier. Let's call everything we just talked about downfall number 1. The televised losing streak came to an end on May 11th, 1998 when Glacier got a win over Sick Boy, a member of Raven's flock. Before the match, Glacier cut a promo saying that one of the things he brought with him to WCW during his debut was the cryonic kick. Glacier felt like too many people were ripping off the move, but nobody could do it better than old Frosty Balls himself. So, if Glacier caught anyone trying to steal his finisher, no matter who it was, Glacier would take them out. After Glacier defeated Sick Boy, Perry Saturn hit the ring to launch an attack. On the 25th of May episode of Nitro, Glacier cut another promo where he said he knew there would be imitators when he brought the cryonic kick to WCW. Perry Saturn's running around saying his kick is better than the original and Glacier isn't gonna stand for it. Glacier mocks Saturn for how he dresses, that's ironic, and Glacier says what he created is something he can also destroy. So Glacier challenges Saturn to a match to see who has the best kick. The match happens later on Nitro and it ended with Saturn performing the Death Valley Driver, not a kick. Brilliant. Saturn had another storyline going on. Raven was trying to get Saturn back in the flock, so Raven and his cronies were getting involved and causing distractions throughout this whole mini feud. On Thunder later in the week, Glacier wrestled Van Hammer. Glacier locked in the rings of Saturn during the match, so Saturn came down, he hit Glacier with a cryonic kick, and Glacier took another Death Valley Driver. The two would then trade victories over the next 2 episodes of Thunder. In the first match, Kenyon dressed up as a referee and he took out Saturn. Kenyon then pulled out the Mortis mask and he showed it to Glacier before Frosty Balls pinned Perry Saturn, but this was merely a tease and nothing more. On the following Thunder, Saturn defeated Glacier. The flock once again got involved and Glacier got distracted, but Saturn once again put Glacier away with a Death Valley Driver. And then Glacier faced Goldberg on the 29th of June 1998 episode of Nitro. This wasn't Glacier's first match with Bill Goldberg. The two had a match the month prior that ended in 2 minutes, and they had 2 other matches before that. But this one right here is a match that Ray Lloyd wouldn't forget. During the bout, Glacier suffered a knee injury, a pretty serious knee injury that would keep him out of action for around 5 months. It looks like this leg lock caused the injury. Glacier grabs his knee immediately after the move, but to his credit, he did finish the match. Goldberg, of course, won the bout after a spear and a jackhammer. Glacier would have to take some time off. He'd make his comeback on the November 5th episode of Thunder, and he offered his support to Ernest Miller. Miller had also turned heel by this point. Glacier was rocking some new gear too, not sure if this was an improvement or not, but it sure was different. And Glacier said guys like he and Miller will never get a break in WCW, so the two should watch each other's backs. Ernest Miller didn't seem to care all that much. The next week, Glacier had his return match, once again on Thunder. He wrestled Chris Adams in the opening contest, but before the match would begin, Glacier once again said he's the originator of the cryonic kick, and guys like Chris Adams were ripping him off. Adams was actually credited as one of the first wrestlers to use the super kick. In the end, Adams hits Glacier with the kick, but Sonny Ono and Ernest Miller get involved. Glacier then shows off his new finisher afterwards, the ice pick. And yeah, Glacier's back in the opening matches of Thunder. Not exactly the comeback story of the year, but it's better than nothing. Monday Nitro on the 11th of November was a bit of a weird one. Raven refused to wrestle Wrath, so Kenyon jumped in the ring to begin his match with Glacier. Wrath ends up wiping out both Kenyon and Glacier, and this sets up a Wrath vs Glacier match at World War III. Good example though of how things had changed in WCW. Just a year earlier, these guys were way more in character in terms of the blood runs cold stuff, but at this point, all three men were very different. Anyway, at World War III, Wrath defeated Glacier, and this was Glacier's last WCW pay-per-view match, even though he stuck around for another year. At this point, it was decided that Ray needed a complete change of character. He went on another losing streak. There was no moving up the cards for Ray, so drastic times called for drastic measures. On the February 11th episode of Thunder, Glacier said Ernest Miller may be a world karate champion, but he doesn't have the biggest and best entrance of all time. This is something Glacier could provide the cat with. Glacier then pokes fun at his own debut, saying he got sick of watching the video vignettes just like everyone else, but he was able to debut with the biggest ring entrance of all time, and Glacier is willing to sell his entrance for a reasonable fee. Sonny Ono cuts a deal and the cat gets the entrance. Kaz Hayashi comes along, Sonny Ono does some wheeling and dealing, and Hayashi ends up overpaying for Glacier's iconic entrance gear. This is downfall number 2. Here's a man admitting his gimmick was absolutely shit. Glacier wanted to leave it all behind and he was willing to sell his gear and his entrance and pretty much his identity to whoever was stupid enough to buy it. I mean, it's funny, but it's also miserable at the same time. The cat came out to Glacier's music, but he was annoyed about the lack of lasers and heavy snow in the ring, so he got rid of the entrance the following week. Kaz Hayashi would come out a few times wearing Glacier's gear, but that too was soon scrapped. Glacier then completely disappeared from WCW television. The gimmick ended with Glacier making fun of his debut, selling his shit and riding off into the sunset. I really want to joke about this, but I can't think of a better way for a guy to disappear. Okay, so are you ready for downfall number 3? Ray Lloyd wasn't done in WCW just yet. Oh no. Glacier was gone, that fact remained true, but what comes next will make you wish that Glacier never left in the first place. The summer of '99 in WCW wasn't a great summer in terms of creativity, and what we have here, folks, is a fine example of why WCW was rapidly going down the toilet. WCW Thunder, August 19th, 1999. Mike tonight says we're going to take a look at a guy who will soon debut in WCW. And there he is, Coach Buzz Stern. Fucking hell. Buzz Stern is here to teach guys how to be proper athletes. He's strict, he's disciplined, and he's also a dick. Rule 1, Buzz Stern makes all the rules. Rule 2, if a trainee has any questions at all, they need to refer back to Rule 1. Okay. Buzz says if these jabronis want to make it, they need to follow the coach's 3 S's. Sweat plus sacrifice equals success. The next week we see Buzz Stern in the WCW power plant. It looks like that guy in the background is butt naked. Fuck's sake. Yeah, Buzz is giving his trainees a hard time, but he wants everyone to succeed. I'm not sure what they were thinking with this stuff, but hey, at least it provides good blunder material. The week after that, the coach announced the first member of the Buzz Stern Winners Club, the clumsy Luther Biggs. Luther didn't remember a single fucking thing about Stern's 3 S's, but he promised he wouldn't let his coach down. A few weeks later, Biggs was ready for a match. Buzz Stern told Biggs he wasn't the best athlete in the world, but he has heart and he'll never give up. So the coach was going to bring Biggs to Thunder and Biggs was going to wrestle. On the 30th of September edition of Thunder, Biggs squared off against Bobby Eaton, and the whole match was met with silence. The audience couldn't have cared less, and they seemed annoyed with Luther's attempts at comedy. They messed up the ending too. Buzz Stern was supposed to dive in and break up a 3 count, but he didn't make it on time. The referee hesitated when counting the 3, but there was nothing the ref could do. Bobby Eaton pins Luther Biggs, and Buzz Stern applies a full Nelson on beautiful Bobby afterwards. For losing the match, Biggs also gets put in a full Nelson, and Buzz Stern rips his trainee apart as they leave the ring. It's absolute dog shit. Luther would win 2 matches on Worldwide and Saturday Night before stepping back in the ring on Thunder. Biggs would face Ming in his final WCW match, and as expected, Luther got annihilated. The Tongan Death Grip gets applied to both Biggs and Buzz Stern, and I don't know what else to say. This thing just wasn't working, and there wasn't a fan in attendance who cared at all. There's one saving grace here though. This is the episode of Thunder where Kevin Nash was thrown on commentary, and he really didn't give a shit about what he said on TV. Nash talked about how sweet Ming's hair was, and how Luther Biggs should have known he was going to get beaten because WCW aired a video package dedicated to Ming before the match took place. Kevin Nash was not taking this seriously one bit, but that just kinda reflected what everyone else was doing in the arena. The whole Buzz Stern debacle came to an end when Buzz wrestled his final WCW match on the 4th of November episode of Thunder, and hey, at least he went out with a match against a great opponent. Buzz faced Eddie Guerrero before getting released by WCW as a cost-cutting measure, and I'd love to say this bout was good, but it was a standard WCW Thunder match. Absolutely nothing to write home about. Eddie Guerrero wins with his frog splash, Buzz Stern and Luther Biggs take a beating from the Filthy Animals, and the story of Buzz Stern and the story of Glacier comes to an end. Or did it? Redemption stories usually have a way of making us feel good, and in wrestling, a good successful return can quickly become the talk of the whole wrestling world. Ray Lloyd had a chance at redemption, but seeing as his WCW comeback would take place at the beginning of 2001, you should already know that this wasn't the feel-good story that many people hoped for, or probably didn't hope for. At WCW Mayhem 2000, a familiar vignette played. The old 1996 Blood Runs Cold video was broadcasted during the pay-per-view, and this could only mean one thing: the old, original Glacier was gonna make a comeback. Like before, these promos would air on WCW television for a couple of weeks, as WCW intentionally, or unintentionally, recaptured the frustration that many felt in 1996 when these fucking things wouldn't stop airing on Nitro. Blood runs colder, apparently. Frosty Balls gets more frosty, and you know what? I could actually see some fans getting into this. I mean, WCW was not what it was in late 2000 or early 2001. A callback to the glory days of 96 and 97 may have been welcomed by some fans who were still hardcore enough to watch WCW during this time period. Norman Smiley was absolutely ecstatic that a real hero was on his way back to WCW, and Glacier even sent a message to Norman saying if he ever needed help, Glacier would be there for him. Well, Norman did need help almost right away, but Glacier didn't show up. Norman was the victim of underhanded tactics by the Harris brothers, so Norman expected help, and he didn't get it. On the 24th of January 2001 episode of Thunder though, Norman got a surprise when a certain hero of his was waiting to greet him backstage. Glacier had returned and he was here to back up Norman Smiley. Norman wrestled a match against Mike Awesome, he clearly needed help again, and out comes Glacier wearing a brand new attire complete with a new mask, and Glacier was just too busy shaking hands with fans at ringside to even notice what was going on in the ring. Norman tried to get Glacier's attention, but old Chili Chode was way too busy with his adoring fan base. Norman took a loss, Glacier then hit the ring to help out, and when Glacier noticed he was too late, he pushed Norman aside so he could do his little pose routine. The next week, the same thing happened. Norman faced Bam Bam Bigelow, he looked all around for Glacier, but Glacier was way too late because he was too busy giving out high fives. After the bout, Glacier, with a typical superhero voice, said he just got rid of another evildoer in Bam Bam Bigelow. Norman lays on the mat in pain, Glacier poses, and Thunder moves on to its next segment. All this could have maybe went somewhere. I'm not saying it was brilliant, I'm not even saying it was good, but it could have been interesting seeing Glacier act like an oblivious goof while Norman grew increasingly frustrated with his hero's lack of action. It all ended just as quick as it started though. The week after the Bam Bam match, Norman politely asked Glacier to show up on time this week. When Norman left, Sean O'Hare and Chuck Palumbo entered Glacier's locker room and they took out our frosty superhero. Glacier was never seen again on WCW television. And that was the multiple downfalls of Glacier. He had such a rough time in WCW, didn't he? At least he got paid well though, and at least he got out still in good health. He's still associated with pro wrestling to this very day, and that's a fucking miracle seeing how utterly ludicrous some of his WCW storylines were, not to mention the whole idea of the Glacier character itself being laughable to begin with. Over on Reliving the War, we are following the adventures of Glacier on a weekly basis. Sometimes he'll show up, other times he won't, but check out the series if you want to follow Glacier's path to mediocrity. Thanks for watching this one, guys, and take care.